Hey, Ryan Witt here, DUI defense attorney in Western Washington. A very commonly asked question is, can I refuse the breathalyzer right after a DUI arrest? And I think the better question is not can I, but should I? I'll explain, so stick around. Okay, so the question is, in Washington State, do you have the right to refuse the breathalyzer right after a DUI arrest? Actually, really simple question. Yeah, you do. But even though you do, maybe it's not something that you want to do. And I'll explain, so stick around throughout this video. But, after you're arrested for DUI, officer has some suspicion, takes you back to the station. They go through a form with you called the implied consent form. Everybody in our kind of industry, attorneys, prosecutors, judges, cops, everyone's going to use the word or the term implied consent form. And in the implied consent form, it says you are advised that you have the right to refuse the breath test, and that if you refuse, A, your license, permit, or privilege to drive will be revoked for at least 1 year, and B, your refusal to submit to the test may be used against you in a future criminal trial. So yeah, right there in the form they're going to read you, 462308 is where it comes from, but it says right there, you have the right to refuse. So you have the right to refuse, but does it mean you really want to refuse? I would say what people don't really realize is they make the decision too much midstream, okay? They kind of dance in the middle for too long. They'll do the field sobriety test, they'll make some admissions. Yeah, I had 3 beers, but it's been 2 hours ago. Or they'll go through and they'll do the finger to nose, they'll do the horizontal gaze nystagmus, and then they'll kind of clam up and be like, well, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do any more tests. And the problem is that fork in the road where you want to, decide if you're going to do a refusal or not has to happen very early on. Because if you're going to refuse the ultimate test, you can't dance in the middle, like I just said. You can't give them things like, well, you can't talk a lot and have them notice your slurred speech, bloodshot, watery eyes. You can't fumble with all your stuff. You can't do really poorly on the field sobriety test, because it doesn't work to do the refusal at the end, because all that other stuff is going to come in. Okay, so it's either you go hardcore one way or the other. If you're going to refuse, you got to know that at the outset, because you don't want to give law enforcement anything to put in the reports. You'd have to be very yes sir, no sir, pleasure speaking with you sir, but I'm going to go forward with my rights to remain silent and not do any of the tests, and that's fine. But you're setting yourself up to go to trial if you do that. Okay, so everything you do, if you go the other, so this is the hardcore route of prove it, pound sand, you don't have anything on me, I'm going to refuse. And I said, you can't dance in the middle. You kind of have to go all the other direction to be like, if you're going to do the field sobriety test, if you're going to do the portable breath test, if you're going to make admissions, then you are more in the camp of, let's mitigate this. This was a mistake. Obviously I cooperated. I went through all these things. Yes, I might have blown an '08 or slightly more, but let's, have mercy on my soul type thing. Most people, don't know they have to make that decision here or here. They kind of play in the middle for a bit, and it's better, if you're going to refuse, you got to go hardcore refusal. If you're going to be the, this is a one-time thing, I really made a mistake, well, then you can't be a real, on the more of I'm a jerk side and I'm not going to cooperate, and then want all this, showering of affection from the prosecution and oh, you're so admirable, if you were kind of doing both things. So purpose of this video, yeah, you can refuse, but understand if you're going to refuse, you can't be doing this, walk and turn and fumbling and all these things and then you don't have anything against me, because you do. I mean, it says right there in the implied consent form, they can use evidence of the refusal against you. They can argue it. I mean, it's basically a jury instruction where they can talk about it, they plead and prove the refusal. And the courts give the prosecutors a tremendous amount of latitude in arguing what a refusal means. I mean, I was a prosecutor 20 years ago. You're given very wide berth on arguing what that means. Why would that person have to refuse that test? What do they have to hide? If I was stone cold sober, if all you jurors were sober, wouldn't you just take the test when offered? Prove your innocence. This person didn't choose to do it. And why do you think that is? I want you to think about that when you return your verdict of guilty. That's what a good prosecutor is going to do. So you can't give them anything to argue. So the question is obviously, yes, you can, but do you want to refuse? Because if you do refuse, you do kind of pigeonhole yourself into, I'm going hardcore, I'm going to trial, pound sand and prove it. Where sometimes the other route gives you more options. Maybe there's suppression issues where there's never going to be a suppression issue with a refusal. You refused. But with the breath test or blood samples or whatnot, there's something your attorney can dig into. Maybe there was things wrong with the quality assurance or with the batch or how it was administered, or maybe the timelines were cut too short. So there's a lot more to argue on the side of just doing the test. So, hey, this is specific for each individual's case. And I know a lot of people ask, can I just refuse? Well, you can, but it comes at a heavy price. So you just have to know that going in. If you're going to refuse, you're really picking the path, and you got to pick it early because, like I said, you can't be in the middle. A lot of times, we deal with people, they kind of start in the middle and decide, hey, it's not worth it. I don't want to fight that fight. Just demonstrate to the prosecutor, demonstrate to the court, this isn't me. I'm doing all these proactive things to kind of better my situation, and I want to demonstrate I'm never going to make this mistake again. So yeah, you can refuse, but it comes down to, what's your risk tolerance in Vegas? Do you want to belly up to the table and just put it all out there and let it ride? That's up to you. It's just a very commonly asked question, so I thought we'd get it out there. We do try to do a lot of these videos on common DUI questions or criminal defense questions. So if this, maybe posed another question for you, drop it in the comments and we'll do our best to answer there. And if you like this content and it was helpful to you, it's super helpful to us if you like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.